Hi, what's up you guys? My name is Tiffany. This is the Typical Bliss channel, my second channel, where I am going to show you guys different techniques that I use in my patterns, and these are going to be linked in each of the patterns so you can go check them out and figure out how to do each of the techniques. Hopefully in the future I can, do all of this eventually, but this is my first one, so we'll get to it. This technique is the tubular 2x2 bind off. Okay, so things get really complicated because it is a complicated bind off. If you don't know, I think right off the bat you need to know Italian bind off to know how to do this, and then you need to know how to do tubular bind off, and that way you can figure out how to do the 2x2 tubular bind off. Tubular bind off is the same thing as Italian bind off, so it just includes 2 rows of double knitting. It's the same for 2x2 bind off, you just have to do it 2x2. But when you're doing 2x2 bind off, you have to switch from 2s to like a 1x1. And so what you do is you kind of cross it over, kind of like you would cross over a cable, in order to switch it so you get the 1x1. So I will show you guys an example. This is my itty bitty swatch. So if you can see, we have the beautiful pink 2x2 ribbing. It starts off with 2 knits and then 2 purls, 2 knits, 2 knits, blah blah blah. Okay, so what you want to do is first you're going to knit the first stitch. Then we're going to find a separate needle, anything that you can kind of find to kind of put this knit on hold. You slip it off and you leave it in front. So normally you would then purl, but because this is tubular, we're doing 2 rows of double knitting. So I'm going to slip the next stitch purlwise with the yarn in front. So I'm just going to do that again because I know lots of things are happening. So again, knitted 1 stitch. The next stitch is held on anything you'd like in the front. Next is the purl stitch. We're going to slip the yarn purlwise with your working yarn in front. Now we're going to take the knit stitch that we had on a separate thing, put it back on your needle, and then we're going to knit. Yes, it's going to be a little tight, but what can we do at this point? Next, slip purl with the yarn in front, and then knit. And then we have the second knit, which, since we're trying to make it so it's knit, purl, knit, right? So it alternates 1x1 instead of 2x2. So if you don't want to count, because I don't like counting, you just see the second knit, you're like, hey, that doesn't fall in line with my 1x1 ribbing. We're going to take it off, slip it in the front, the yarn in front, slip the next purl stitch, and then put your knit stitch back on your needle. So you're kind of just like switching them over, and then you're going to knit. So slip again. Okay, and then I will just quickly do this and then move on to the back side. Now for the back side, so this isn't in the round, so if you were in the round you would slip the yarn in the back and then purl. So it's the exact same as tubular bind off because you switched it, so it's 2x2 back to 1x1. But since we're on the back side, you have to just do the same thing. You would knit and then slip the yarn in front. So we knitted 1, slipping it purlwise with the yarn in front, knit, slip the yarn with the yarn in front, knit, slip, yarn in front with the yarn in front, and then you knit, and then you keep going. So once you've done the front row, it should look kind of like the stitches at the very top are going to look like knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, kind of the 1x1 ribbing. You've switched it from 2x2 to 1x1. So you would do the back side as it were one by one tubular bind off. And then you would then do Italian bind off afterwards. I'll just quickly show you guys what you have to do. So we're going to cut off a bit of this and use a fabric needle. To start Italian bind off, you're going to have to do your setup, which is for the knit, you're going to put the needle in purlwise. So this is knitwise. You don't want to do knitwise, you're going to do purlwise first. And then for the purl stitch, you're going to want to take your needle from the back, put it right in between these two guys, pulling all the way through, and then take your needle knitwise into the purl. Bam, right in there. So that's the setup row. So what I like to do, if you don't do this already, it's Italian bind off, but you do the 4 steps, you combine them into 2. So what I like to do is we're gonna slip the first stitch off knitwise. Slip it off, and then we're going to skip the second one, go to the next knit. You're going to put the needle in purlwise and pull through. So usually that step is done in 2 steps, but I like to just do it in 1, like fluid motion, so I never have to think about it again. So then we do the 3rd and 4th step, which I combine into 2. You slip purlwise off the needle, and then you're going to stick your needle in between the knit and the purl. You're gonna slip it in through, I guess. Make sure you pull relatively tightly so then the bind off forms, and then you're going to put your needle in knitwise into the purl. Okay, so now we're back on the knit. You're going to slip knitwise off the needle. Then you're going to skip the purl, go on to the knit, purlwise, slip it purlwise, pull through, and pull. Then you've got the purl. Sorry, slip your needle purlwise off. Then you're going to go in between. And what I like to do is I'll usually just like take the needle, instead of like pulling it all the way out, you're going to take your needle and you're just going to quickly go in knitwise. This is a relatively hard technique, so I can do it a little bit slower. So again, this is, you've got your knit, purl, and it's kind of like 4 sections. What you do is you slip this one, and then you do your setup for your knit, and then you slip your purl, and then you set up for the purl. And that's kind of like, that's how I remember Italian bind off. It does take quite a while to remember it, but once you do, it's a simple pattern. Slip knit wise, slip knit wise, then we're going to slip purl wise. And you always remember the first stitch always comes off the needle. After the setup row, of course. Slip off purlwise, go through the back, and then go knitwise. Go, like, slip the needle knitwise. So, just to show you the final. It's a little wonky at the back, but that's how she goes. And so that is how you get a kind of seamless 2x2 tubular bind off.